Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you're here today. Today, we're diving into an intriguing topic: why tattoos might seem to hurt more for men. This presentation will explore the factors behind pain perception, cultural influences, and biological differences. We'll look at some recent research and discuss what might explain these differences. So, let's get started and uncover the facts together. Let's take a closer look at what scientific research says about tattoo pain and sex. Contrary to what many might assume, peer-reviewed studies suggest that there isn't a significant difference in pain experienced during tattooing between men and women. One particular study even found that, during the actual tattooing process, both sexes reported similar pain levels. Interestingly, immediately after the procedure, women actually reported feeling more pain than men. This highlights how perceptions of pain can vary and are not solely determined by biological sex. Understanding these findings helps us see that tattoo pain is more complex than stereotypes suggest and varies from person to person. This is an important point as we continue to explore the factors that influence tattoo experiences overall. Let's explore some key biological and neurological differences in how men and women perceive pain. First, let's talk about nociceptor sensitization. Pain receptors, or nociceptors, seem to function differently between genders. Research shows that in females, prolactin plays a role in increasing pain sensitivity, while in males, orexin B is more involved. This suggests that men and women may process pain through fundamentally different pathways, which is quite fascinating. Moving on to pain thresholds and tolerance, generally, men tend to have higher pain thresholds and tolerate pain better. This could be influenced by cultural expectations around masculinity, which sometimes lead men to underreport pain. On the other hand, studies indicate that women often experience pain more intensely, more frequently, and for longer durations than men. These differences are important to understand as we consider personalized approaches to pain management and how societal factors may also influence pain perception. All of these points highlight the complex interplay between biology, neurology, and social influences in pain perception across genders. Let's talk about some physiological factors that can influence how tattoos and piercings feel, specifically, skin and fat differences between men and women. First, skin thickness. Generally, men's skin tends to be thicker and has less subcutaneous fat compared to women's. This means that, on average, men might experience a different sensation during procedures because there's less cushioning beneath the skin. Now, moving on to fat distribution. Women typically have more fat padding, especially around areas like the hips and thighs. This extra fat acts as an insulator, which can help dampen nerve endings and potentially make pain from piercings or tattoos feel less intense. These differences are important because they can influence how procedures feel spatially, meaning in specific parts of the body, though overall, research suggests that men often report lower systemic pain perception. So, in the context of our presentation, understanding these physiological differences helps explain why individual experiences with tattoos and piercings can vary so much. So on Reddit, many users actually challenge the idea that tattoo pain charts, which differentiate pain levels by sex, are really accurate. One common comment is that, neurologically, these charts just don't make any damn sense. It's a strong statement, but it highlights a key point. Pain perception is complex and not easily reduced to simple sex differences. Another user points out that men and women have different fat distribution, skeletal structure, and skin thickness, which can influence pain tolerance. They suggest that it would make sense to have sex-differentiated charts because these physical differences could affect how pain is experienced. These perspectives really reflect the broader debate about subjective pain. Some argue that inherent biological differences between sexes support the idea of separate pain charts. Others, however, emphasize that individual variation plays a much bigger role than gender alone. This discussion ties into our overall theme. Understanding pain isn't straightforward. It's a mix of biology, personal experience, and perception, so relying solely on sex-based charts might oversimplify what is, ultimately a very personal experience. Let's take a look at some of the psychological and sociocultural factors that influence pain perception. First, cultural conditioning plays a big role. Men are often conditioned to endure pain silently, to appear strong and stoic, whereas women might be encouraged to acknowledge their discomfort more openly. This means that self-reported pain levels can sometimes be skewed because of these ingrained societal expectations. Next, there's the concept of psychological resilience. Recent research in sports science suggests that female athletes, in particular, may have a higher capacity to endure pain and fatigue. This indicates that psychological resilience and pain tolerance can actually be stronger for some women, which challenges some traditional assumptions. Overall, these influences highlight how much our social and psychological environment shape our experience and expression of pain, connecting back to the broader theme of understanding gender differences in pain perception. So, why do many people believe that tattoos hurt more for men? Well, one reason could be that men often have thicker skin and less fat padding, especially in areas like the arms or legs, which can make the tattooing process more intense. Additionally, social norms around masculinity might play a role, as men may feel they need to suppress or even misrepresent their pain, leading to the perception that it's worse for them. Lastly, there are anecdotal stories and visual pain charts that can be easily misinterpreted or exaggerated, sometimes emphasizing gender differences that might not be as clear-cut as they seem. These factors all contribute to the common belief that tattoos might hurt more for men, but understanding the nuances helps us see the bigger picture. So, in conclusion, when we look at the evidence, it simply doesn't support the idea that tattoos hurt more for men. In fact, if anything, women tend to report feeling equal or even greater pain immediately after getting tattooed. This is an important point because it challenges some common assumptions about pain perception based on gender. While we know that there are biological differences between men and women, like skin structure, hormone levels, and nociception, which is the sensory perception of pain, these differences actually tend to suggest that women might experience higher, not lower, pain sensitivity. So overall, the data points toward the idea that pain experiences during tattooing are not significantly different between genders, and in some cases, women might even feel more pain. This aligns with the broader theme of our presentation, which is to understand how biological and psychological factors influence pain perception, regardless of gender stereotypes. So, to wrap things up, the idea that men feel more pain from tattoos than women is actually not supported by current scientific research. In fact, there's no solid evidence to back that up. Instead, this notion seems to come from subjective opinions, cultural stereotypes, or even simplified charts that don't tell the full story. It's important to recognize that pain perception is highly individual and influenced by many factors beyond gender. This ties back to our overall theme that we should approach such claims critically and rely on scientific evidence rather than assumptions or misconceptions. So, to wrap things up with our key takeaways, first, it's important to note that scientific studies show there is no significant difference in tattoo pain between sexes. This means that, despite common beliefs, men and women generally experience similar levels of pain during tattooing. Next, while biological and neurological differences do exist between sexes, it's interesting to see that women often report higher pain intensity. This highlights that pain perception is complex and influenced by various factors. Then there's the sociocultural impact. Cultural conditioning and psychological factors play a big role in how people report pain. Sometimes, what we expect or believe can influence our experience and how we communicate it. Lastly, a common misconception is that men feel more pain than women. But, as the scientific evidence shows, this isn't supported. So overall, it's crucial to understand that pain perception isn't solely based on biological differences, but also shaped by psychological and cultural influences. This helps us see the bigger picture of how we experience and interpret pain during tattooing.